The vanishing. The rain had stopped, but the sky still wept in gray. Clara Easton sat in her dusty Toyota Corolla, parked in the farthest corner of the church lot. Her knuckles whitened around the steering wheel as she watched the children scatter across the lawn, their tiny laughter slicing through the humid Sunday air. That laughter used to warm her heart. Now it stabbed like glass. 3 years ago, her daughter Mia vanished from this very church. 7 years old, braided hair, blue jean dress, pink backpack. Vanished. No blood, no scream, no witnesses, just gone. And now, as if time had mocked her pain, life at the church had resumed like nothing ever happened. A new Sunday school banner. New kids, new songs, new teachers. But for Clara, time had stopped the moment Mia disappeared. She glanced down at the crumpled flyer in her lap, a retreat brochure printed on cream-colored paper, sent anonymously. It read, "For mothers carrying pain too heavy for words, healing the weights in the silence of the Colorado peaks. No distractions, no noise, only truth." There was no name, no address, just coordinates and a date. Today. She didn't know why she kept the flyer. She didn't know why she packed a bag. But as she sat in the church lot, the flyer trembling in her fingers, Clara realized she couldn't go inside. Not again. Not without Mia. Not after the way they all looked at her now. With pity, with whispers, with eyes that said, "She's the woman whose daughter vanished. Don't ask. Don't stare." So she turned the key. The car rumbled to life. And Clara drove away. She didn't stop to say goodbye. She didn't tell anyone where she was going. She just followed the mountain road, toward the place the flyer had promised would heal her, or maybe finally break her for good. The retreat center wasn't on a map. GPS brought her to a small gravel road cutting through dense pine forest. A handmade wooden sign hung crookedly on a post, faded letters barely legible. Whispering Rock Sanctuary. By invitation only. Clara's heart thudded. This was it. She parked beside a moss-covered boulder and stepped out. The air was sharp and cold, filled with the scent of pine and rain-damp soil. A single trail led up the slope. No cars, no lights, no sounds. Clara slung her backpack over one shoulder and started climbing. It was nearly dusk when the monastery came into view. Unlike anything she expected, it was not some crumbling stone temple, but a set of elegant, minimalist wooden structures tucked into the mountainside, blending seamlessly into the trees. Lanterns glowed softly along the path, casting long shadows. A woman stood at the top of the path, waiting. She was tall, dressed in simple robes of ash gray, with long silver hair braided down her back. Her face was unreadable. "You must be Clara," the woman said. Clara hesitated. "Yes. How do you know my name?" "The mountains remember everyone who comes with grief," the woman said cryptically. "Come. You're expected." Clara followed her in silence. Inside the main hall, warmth greeted her. The scent of cedarwood and burning sage clung to the air. The walls were lined with quiet paintings, mountains, rivers, and a single image of a child kneeling beside a pond. The woman turned to her. "I'm Mother Lyra. I guide those who seek answers beyond what the world can give." Clara's throat tightened. "I didn't come looking for answers, just peace." Mother Lyra's eyes softened. "Peace is never found until truth is uncovered. Whether you seek it or not, it will find you." She gestured to a side door. "Your room is this way. You'll find robes inside, as well as a journal. No phones, no clocks, no outside distractions. Meals are at sunrise and sunset. The rest of the time is yours to reflect." As Clara stepped into the small room, she felt a weight lift, but not from healing, from uncertainty. Something here was off. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. The wind howled outside like it was warning her. Her room was bare, just a thin mattress, a candle, and a blank journal. She lit the candle, watching the flame dance as her thoughts spiraled. She thought of Mia, the last time she saw her, the way she'd run into the church, skipping happily, the way she'd waved goodbye without a second glance. And then, nothing. No trail, no scent, no leads. 3 years of press conferences, police visits, private investigators, and whispered prayers. All worthless. Clara buried her face in her hands and wept. The next morning, after a silent breakfast of warm broth and rice, Mother Lyra led the retreat participants, a quiet group of 5 women and 2 men, to a meditation garden. Clara noticed none of them spoke. Their eyes seemed distant, hollow. "We begin with breath," Mother Lyra said, "and we listen for what the mountain whispers back." But Clara wasn't listening to the mountain. She was watching the children, because somehow there were children here too. Dozens of them, dressed in the same gray robes, their heads shaved. They moved in perfect silence across the courtyard, sweeping leaves, carrying water jugs, reading from scrolls. Their silence was eerie, their obedience unnatural. And then she saw her. A girl, maybe 10 years old, with strikingly familiar features. Almond-shaped eyes, small, sharp nose, a tiny freckle on her chin. Clara's heart leaped. She stood, trembling, unsure whether to speak, unsure whether her eyes were playing tricks. But before she could move, Mother Lyra stepped in front of her. "I see you've noticed her," she said calmly. Clara's voice cracked. "That girl, who is she?" Mother Lyra tilted her head. "She has no name. The children here shed their pasts. They are blank pages ready to be rewritten. No name." Clara's voice sharpened. "That's not possible. She looks like—" "Many come here hoping to see someone they lost," Lyra interrupted. "Sometimes pain paints illusions. You must not chase ghosts. You must let go." But Clara wasn't imagining this. She knew that face. She'd held that face, kissed it, named it. That was Mia. She was sure of it. That night, Clara couldn't stay in her room. She waited until the monastery was quiet, until the lanterns were dimmed and the footsteps ceased, then crept out into the hallway. She moved silently, sticking close to the walls, her heart pounding. She followed the path the children had taken earlier, past the garden, past the dining area, to a narrow hallway marked private. Clara hesitated only for a second, then pushed through the door. Inside, the air was colder. She crept past locked rooms and empty chambers until she heard something, a faint whisper, then another. She turned the corner and saw 2 children in the shadows, whispering urgently. One of them was the girl, Mia. Clara gasped. The girl turned toward her, and in that moment, in those crystal blue eyes, something flickered. Recognition. "Mom," the girl whispered. Then everything went black. The child with no name. Clara awoke to a pounding headache and the faint scent of burning herbs. Her eyes fluttered open, and the world spun. Wooden beams overhead, soft flickering candlelight, a room she didn't recognize. Not hers. She was lying on a padded mat, her wrists no longer free. Her hands had been gently, but firmly, bound with linen cloths. A subtle floral scent floated through the air, sweet but strange, like incense mixed with something darker. She tried to sit up, but the dizziness pulled her back. A voice broke the silence. "You shouldn't have gone where you weren't allowed." It was calm, female, familiar. Mother Lyra stepped out from the shadows, her hands folded neatly before her. She looked exactly the same, serene, composed, as though Clara hadn't just passed out after confronting the girl who had called her Mom. Clara's throat was dry. "What happened to me?" "You fainted," Lyra said simply. "You were found in one of the restricted corridors. For your safety, we moved you here. We feared the mountain air may have been too much for you." Clara shook her head slowly. "No, I saw her. I saw the girl. She recognized me. Lyra's expression didn't change. Grief is a powerful architect of illusions, Clara. The mind sees what it needs to survive. I wasn't hallucinating, Clara snapped. Her voice was weak, but her heart was surging with fury. She said, "Mom." She looked at me and knew me. That was my daughter. That was Mia. Lyra let out a soft sigh and began pouring tea into a small ceramic cup. She walked over and held it to Clara's lips. "Drink. You're dehydrated." Clara turned her head away. "What's in it?" "Nothing harmful. Lavender, wild mint, willow bark. You need to rest." But Clara knew better now. She hadn't simply fainted. Something had been done to her. She had been drugged, silenced, removed from where she wasn't supposed to be. Lyra placed the cup beside the mat. "We are not your enemy, Clara, but healing cannot happen while you fight the process." "Let me see her," Clara demanded. "Who?" "You know who. The girl. The one you say has no name." "She is not yours," Lyra said firmly. "She belongs to the mountain now. Her past is no longer her burden." Clara's voice broke. "You brainwashed her." Lyra tilted her head. "We saved her." There was a long pause. Candlelight flickered between them, casting moving shadows across the wooden walls. "Who brought her here?" Clara asked. "Who gave her to you?" Lyra said nothing at first. Then, with eerie calm, she whispered, "Some children are found, others are delivered, and some find their own way home." Before Clara could respond, the door creaked open. Brother Ansel, one of the older monks, stepped in and nodded silently to Lyra. "Time for meditation," he said. Lyra stood. "You'll stay here, Clara. We'll speak again when you're ready to listen." Then they were gone. And Clara was alone. Clara didn't sleep that night. She waited until the moon rose high, then began working at the linen bindings around her wrists. They weren't tight, symbolic restraints more than anything, but her hands were shaky and her body was still weak. Eventually, the knots loosened. She sat up, slowly. Her head swam, but the anger in her chest kept her upright. There was a single window in the room, barred, but wide enough to peer through. She saw the monastery courtyard, quiet in moonlight. And then she saw her, the girl again. Mia. She was sweeping leaves in slow, tired circles, her bare feet shuffling silently. A single lamp cast a golden glow around her, making her look like a ghost. Clara pressed her face to the bars. "Mia," she whispered. The girl paused, looked up, and once again, their eyes met. Clara's breath caught. She wanted to scream, wanted to run out there and grab her, but the room's only exit was locked. She was trapped. The girl hesitated, then looked over her shoulder. Then, cautiously, she stepped closer to Clara's window, just out of direct lamplight. She leaned in. Her voice was soft, frightened. "Is it true?" Clara nodded quickly. "Yes, I'm your mother. Mia, it's me." The girl blinked, then looked down. "My name is Rin here." "That's not your name," Clara whispered. "You're Mia Easton. You disappeared 3 years ago. We searched everywhere. I never stopped looking for you." "I remember," the girl said slowly. "A dog, a park, a big white van." Clara's stomach turned. "Yes, that day. We stopped for ice cream before church. You had your pink backpack. We were late. That's why I dropped you off quickly." "I was scared," the girl whispered. "I tried to scream." Clara choked on a sob. "Who brought you here, baby? Who hurt you?" "I don't know," the girl said, her voice trembling. "They gave me a tea. Then everything got quiet. They told me I was chosen, that I had no family. But I remembered your face. I always remembered." Clara wiped her tears. "We're leaving, Mia. I'm getting you out of here. I promise." The girl nodded slowly, but her eyes were fearful. "They'll know," she said. "They always know." And then, just like that, she vanished into the shadows again, her small figure disappearing behind the courtyard gate. The next morning, Clara was moved back to her original room. As if nothing had happened, the door was left unlocked, her personal items returned. But Clara was done playing the obedient guest. She knew now. Mia was alive. Brainwashed. Controlled. But alive. She needed a plan. That afternoon, during group meditation, Clara deliberately broke the silence. She turned to a guest seated beside her, a man with kind eyes and a hesitant posture. "Do you have a phone?" she whispered. The man stiffened. "You're not supposed to speak." "I'm leaving," Clara said. "Tonight. There's a little girl here who doesn't belong. She was kidnapped. I need to get help." The man looked horrified. "You shouldn't say that. They listen." Clara leaned in. "Please, I saw your hands shaking earlier. You don't want to be here either." He hesitated, then slowly reached into the folds of his robe and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. A slim satellite phone. "I keep it hidden. For emergencies," he whispered. "There's no signal here, but if you get to the southern ridge, near the river bend, you might reach a tower." "Thank you," Clara whispered. "Be careful," he said. That night, Clara packed her few belongings, hid the phone in her waistband, and slipped out. She made her way past the sleeping quarters, sticking to shadows, until she reached the children's dormitory. Inside, dozens of small beds lined the walls. She found Mia near the back, curled beneath a thin blanket, her tiny hands gripping a wooden prayer charm. Clara gently shook her shoulder. "Mia, sweetheart, wake up." The girl opened her eyes. There was no fear this time, only trust. Clara held out her hand. "Let's go." They moved quickly, quietly. But just as they reached the outer gate, a bell rang. Not loud, not urgent, but unmistakable. They had been discovered. Clara and Mia ran, down the gravel path, through the trees, toward the river bend. Clara's lungs burned. Maya struggled to keep up, but they kept moving. The air grew colder. The moonlit forest stretched endlessly. And then, finally, Clara saw it. The southern ridge. A wooden crossbeam marked the old hiking trail. Beyond it, a jagged ledge overlooking the valley. She scrambled up the rocks, pulled the phone from her waistband, and pressed the power button. A red light blinked. Then, one bar. She dialed. The phone rang once, then cut out. No. She tried again. This time, it connected. 911. "What is your emergency?" Clara sobbed with relief. "My name is Clara Easton. I'm in the Whispering Rock Sanctuary in the Colorado mountains. My daughter was kidnapped 3 years ago. I just found her here. She's alive. They're trying to stop us." "Ma'am, stay on the line. Officers are being dispatched. Can you get to a road or any landmark?" "No. We're by the river bend, south of the main compound. Please hurry." A sound behind her made Clara freeze. Crunching leaves. Shifting branches. They'd been followed. Clara grabbed Mia's hand and turned toward the deeper woods. But a voice called out. Calm. Male. "Clara, stop. You'll hurt her." It was Brother Ansel. He stood a few yards away, arms extended, like he was coaxing a wild animal. "She belongs to the mountain now. You can't take her back to that broken world." "She's my daughter," Clara growled, "and I'm taking her home." Ansel's face hardened. "Then you leave us no choice." He raised his hand, and behind him, 2 more monks emerged from the trees, carrying ropes. Clara stepped back, shielding Mia. "Stay behind me," she whispered. Then, from the distance, a new sound. Wailing sirens. Clara's heart soared. The monks froze. Red and blue lights lit up the ridge, flashing between the trees. Clara screamed, "We're here, over here." The monks scattered, and seconds later, uniformed officers burst through the clearing, guns raised, flashlights blinding. Hands up. Step away from the girl. Clara collapsed to her knees, sobbing. They were safe. A name remembered. 2 days later, Denver Memorial Children's Hospital. The hospital room was flooded with light. Real light. No candle glow, no incense haze, no oppressive silence. Just the hum of machines, the murmur of nurses, and the occasional beeping from monitors. Clara sat at Mia's bedside, her hand gently brushing the girl's small fingers. They had been cleaned now. No more ash, no more incense powder, no rope burns. Just the soft skin of a child who had survived the impossible. Mia, now wearing a cotton t-shirt with cartoon stars, was asleep, sedated lightly after her last round of medical tests. But she looked more at peace than Clara had seen in years. Even with the monitors around her and IV tubes trailing from her arm, she looked safe. Clara exhaled, trying to release the last of the tension in her chest, but it lingered like a shadow. The detective entered quietly. She was in her 40s, sharp-eyed, and dressed more like a social worker than an officer. Her name was Detective Ava Monroe, and from the moment she met Clara at the hospital, she'd taken the case personally. She spoke in a hushed tone. The results just came in. The DNA is a match. It's her. Clara nodded, tears welling in her eyes. I knew it. Not a doubt, Monroe said. But that means someone forged the paperwork that brought her to the monastery. The people who claim she was abandoned, they filed under a different name. No fingerprints, no background. And now we know why. Clara leaned back in the chair. They reprogrammed her, gave her a new name, Rin. She doesn't even know her real birthday. She will, Monroe said gently. We'll help her remember. But there's more, Clara. We've been digging deep since you made the 911 call. Whispering Rock Sanctuary doesn't officially exist. It's not a registered religious site. The land is owned through a shell company based overseas. So it's all fake. Built to look legitimate, Monroe said. But it's part of something much darker. We believe this is one of several isolated spiritual compounds run by a trafficking ring. They take in children who are untraceable or made to sing that way, rebrand them, train them for various purposes. Not all of them survive. Clara felt the bile rise in her throat. But she did. She did. Because you came. Monroe sat down beside her, lowering her voice. We arrested 6 people at the compound, but 2 key figures are missing. Brother Kelsung and the man known only as Elias. He's believed to be the recruiter, the one who delivered the children. They escaped. Clara asked. They slipped out during the chaos, but we'll find them. We've issued nationwide alerts. Interpol's involved now, too. Clara stared at Mia, watching the soft rise and fall of her chest. She said she remembered a white van and a man with a jagged scar. That matches a few descriptions we've got on Elias, Monroe said. The scar might be the key to catching him. There was a knock at the door. A nurse peeked in. Sorry, Ms. Easton. There's someone here who says she knows you. Says her name is Nora. Clara's face lit up. Let her in. Nora rushed in, dropping her bag as she wrapped Clara in a fierce hug. I saw the news, she said breathlessly. They're talking about it everywhere. People are outraged. They're saying you're a hero. Clara gave a tired smile. I'm just a mom who refused to stop looking. Nora's eyes moved to the sleeping child in the bed. That's her. Clara nodded. She's not fully back yet. She doesn't remember everything. But she knew me, even through everything they did to her. Nora stepped closer. She's beautiful, strong, like you. Clara shook her head. I had so many moments I wanted to give up. I came to the mountains to let go. Instead, I found her. She found you, Nora said. You were meant to be there. The next day, a child psychologist was brought in to help with Mia's recovery. She was a kind, gentle woman named Dr. Reyes, with a warm voice and pockets full of silly stickers and candy. The session started slow, drawing, listening to music, repeating familiar words. Clara sat in the corner, tears burning her eyes as Mia slowly began to reclaim pieces of her stolen childhood. "Do you remember your favorite ice cream?" Dr. Rice asked softly one afternoon. Maya frowned thoughtfully. "Mint, chip." Clara gasped. "Yes, that was your favorite. You used to ask for extra chocolate drizzle." Mia smiled, small and shy. "Mom." Clara blinked hard. "Yes, baby. Can we get some when I'm better?" Clara broke into a sob. She wrapped her arms around her daughter and held her close. "Yes, every day if you want. Forever." 2 weeks later, Clara and Mia moved into a temporary safe house provided by the police department. It was in a quiet suburb outside Denver, with guards at the gate and officers posted around the perimeter. It wasn't home, but it was safe. Every night, Clara sat beside Mia's bed and read her old favorite books, ones she had brought from their original home. The Velveteen Rabbit, Goodnight Moon, Where the Wild Things Are. At first, Maya flinched when Clara reached for her hand. But little by little, she stopped flinching. She started hugging again. She started laughing. She started remembering. One morning, she came out of her room wearing a pink hoodie Clara had packed in her go-bag. It was old, something Maya used to wear when she was 5. It still barely fit. "Do I look like Mia again?" she asked shyly. Clara knelt, her voice trembling. "You are Mia, and you always were." 3 months later, courtroom 17B. The courtroom was full, packed with news reporters, child advocacy workers, and stern-faced federal agents. Clara sat beside her attorney, hands folded tightly in her lap. Across the room sat a representative from Child Protective Services and 2 individuals from the federal task force overseeing the monastery investigation. The judge, an older woman with soft eyes, but a no-nonsense tone, addressed the court. Based on the findings submitted, DNA confirmation, psychological evaluations, and testimony provided, it is the judgment of this court that Mia Easton shall be returned fully to the legal custody of her biological mother, Clara Easton. Clara closed her eyes as the words washed over her. She could barely breathe. Mia turned in her seat and looked at her. "We can go home." Clara smiled. "Yes, sweetheart, we can go home." Later that week, back in Oregon, Clara stood in her old front yard, hand in hand with Mia. The house was just as she remembered it. Blue shutters, crooked mailbox, the tree swing she'd refused to cut down. Mia clutched a small stuffed rabbit, the same one Clara had found in the attic, packed away in a memory box. "Is this really our house?" Maya asked. Clara squeezed her hand. "Yes, it's always been yours." They walked inside together, crossing the threshold between the life they lost and the one they were about to rebuild. 2 years later, national news broadcast. And finally tonight, a story of hope and resilience. 2 years ago, Clara Easton made national headlines after rescuing her daughter from a secretive mountain retreat where authorities say dozens of children were being held under false identities. Today, Clara and Mia work together with a nonprofit called the Remembering Project, helping parents of missing children access mental health resources, legal assistance, and investigation tools. Mia, now 12, says she remembers only light and music from her past, but she's focused on her future. And for Clara Easton, the words she once feared she'd never hear again are now the ones she wakes up to every day. Good morning, Mom.